What's up, guys? I'm SaltEMike, and this is your Star Citizen Week in Review for September 18th, 2023. Star Citizen dropped a patch for each day of the week this week. The Postmortem was finally released, but yeah, and their plans for cargo in the future were shared. All that and more on today's Week in Review. And as always, if this is your first week in review, this is where I take all of the official Star Citizen news each week, put it into one video, and share some of my opinions about it. I also live stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/SaltEMike, every day about Monday, so I can get this video out to you guys. Now, we have so many things to get through this week. There's more news this week than we've had in the last three, so let's jump into all of those 320 patches we had on the PTU. And of course, we'll start out with the Monday patch. They reverted the change of the Mobi-Glass keybind from tab back to F1 because people probably complained. Would they complain as much if they just left it for more than a couple days? I doubt it. For bug fixes, they might have fixed the reinforcement cutlass at some locations from landing on top of the last wreck. I'll believe it when I see it, though. And as always, a number of crash fixes. For Tuesday, they updated the title for the scanning ping keybind, which was hold and release V from hold, I assume, and they pretty much tried to get a nasty bug in the PU for missions like Security Post Korea or even Jump Town, where you can only sell one commodity box at a time, one of the little 1/8 SCU boxes, before the whole terminal decided it didn't want to buy anything anymore. And for more crashes, they fixed, and servers are still really bad at this point. I had to literally quit mining Wednesday morning because it was actually impossible to do so. And then for Wednesday, the feature updates there are they finally dealt with a major server crash issue. You will now have your server crashed ship stored at the last location you spawned it or docked it at. This is easily one of the top quality of life changes we've seen in 320. This is fantastic. So taking previously how it worked in 319, I think when they finally added it back in, if the server crashed, your ship got sent back to your home location. Many of us leave our home location instantly and choose a different one because home locations stink. Yeah, so this is a big welcome change because now you'll be able to recover your ship from the last place you were at. Much easier, much more easy to get back into the game. They also did some cleanup with HDR, some menu wording there, and used some unused MFD settings as well. For bugs, they fixed a weird invisible physics wall at the Commons vehicle spawn. I dealt with that one. It was kind of annoying. And some weird Armistice Zone issues, as well as the ROC should be working again. Should being the word, because I hear it's still not. Thursday, bugs, more minor bug fixes, but that known issues list is still incredibly long, with some of them being pretty game-breaking. And then for Friday, more bug fixes. One of the most annoying bugs in Gun Rushes fixed is when guns swap, they shouldn't break and not fire anymore. That is not fixed, but it's better than it used to be. Make sure every time your gun switches, you press 2, and that fixes it. They claim they fixed an audio bug, but it isn't, and it's awful. Basically, it just like replays audio over and over again and gets super delayed every like half an hour to an hour. And really, the only fix right now is relogging. Then long-term persistence update came out. This is pretty simple. They stated that they don't intend to wipe, and you will not lose ships purchased with Alpha UEC in-game, Alpha UEC earned. You will not lose your reputation or non-consumables like armor and weapons, but you will lose rented ships, stackable consumable items like food and ammo, and refinery jobs. There's some other random ways you can lose stuff. Feel free to check out the link in the description for the edge case situations. Personally, I wanted to see a wipe because there were so many exploits, and it would be cool to start fresh again. I think it is always refreshing and fun, but hopefully we have 4.0 coming at some point, so that's probably when they're going to want to wipe next. That was the patches for this week. I don't think they've made enough progress on 320 to consider releasing it. I think they were probably trying to push the entire week, but they did not release it to live this weekend, so that's a good sign that they're holding off, but it does feel like they're rushing out for some ship sales. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think on that, and then we'll jump into the monthly report we had this week. And typically we start out with AI features, and I've leaned towards skipping them more lately than I have been. And even though AI are completely jank still, I have noticed them performing different actions than we've seen in the past. The unarmed AI at like Ninetales bunkers, they pick up weapons now when they are not frozen and T-posed and running around in circles. So some of this might matter, namely the ammo finding functionality when they run out, which I don't think we are at this stage yet in the PU. AI, I think, still have unlimited ammo, but it still is worth noting. Then for ship art, the Tumbril Storm is done, but they've had some issues with the treads, so expect to see it in at least 5 more sneak peeks before SitCon. Check out the sneak peek section of this video. 2 new variants of a vehicle are done and ready for sale at IAE, probably, and get any guesses on what they might be? I have no idea. And all new ship is in white box, so we have no clue what that is. I'm assuming a little CitizenCon ship. And then the Santokai is finalizing, so just a few more sneak peeks and a second ISC on it as well, I'm sure. And then the X1 is in white box waiting for a review. They have a lot of ships they're working on that they haven't sold. We're going to see some of that. And there's an economy team, short and sweet, planning upcoming goals, which include rebalancing cargo and its experience. They're also building a tool to investigate the state of cargo, the cargo loop as well. This is bigger than these little 2-sentence updates make it look like. This is something that has been ignored for years and honestly has driven the major times that many players got together and interacted. The original Jumptown, Bezdek trading at Ariel, drug exploits at Brios, and now gold at SMO 18. I know it's just piracy interactions, which isn't the best way for players to interact, but it still really drove us together. I hope they really find a nice, fun way to improve the system. Then, Arena Commander changes. Private matches are still in progress and are going to be a big part of avoiding so much stupid drama in the PU, along with spectator mode to support player run events and stuff. There were actually 2 mentions of Theaters of War and its revival. It's going to be a while, is my guess, but at least it's being mentioned again, which is more than we've had for the last few years. And they created a mode for Fight or Flight, the tournament that's going to be at CitizenCon. I don't know what to think about this. That's kind of wild. Good for Atmo Esports, but time spent outside of the game is a bit weird. But that mode is so cool that it kind of makes sense as well, that it's just going to end up being a game mode anyway, and they can call it Fight or Flight. And Atmo Esports has its stamp on Star Citizen forever, which is awesome. Weapon features. They are investigating collisions, as when we hit something with our gun goes up and blocks our view, so they want to see if they can handle it, where you press against your stomach sideways for, to better avoid clipping and it feel more natural. And they're testing procedural recoil. Current recoil isn't much of a thing, and weapons don't have a ton of personality, and they feel this will create that personality. I think ammo types are also going to play a big factor, but that seems almost completely out of the cards for now. For gameplay features, what's new? This section is the shortest of the report, and we had the economy one. They're just covering that they are still working on vehicle tractor beams and resource network is still progressing. Okay. Mission features. Siege of Orison is getting improvements, namely keeping us together, which is my biggest issue with the mission. Players were always skipping ahead, and I absolutely hated that. The Destroy Drug Stash missions, say that 3 times fast, are working well. This improvement is in the 320 PTU with some minor bugs that the team is already aware of. Steal Evidence at Correa and Retrieve Consignment missions are getting reputation hooked up to them. Not sure how in-depth this will be. Probably just makes a bar go up for now with somebody. I don't know. And then they've taken some cargo missions as far as they can take them for now, which sounds like it might be a while before we get some good ones. Reputation-based hostility is moving, which is one of the most important features coming to Star Citizen, in my opinion. Also, highlight mission critical items in your inventory is actually a really interesting thing. Right now, we really don't have any. So it seems like they're preparing for something interesting. I don't know. Maybe that's just a CitizenCon update. I hope not. And then that's basically what we have for the rest of the update. It's all CitizenCon prep. It's all very pyro for the 4th time in a row. Expect a lot of Road to 4.0 or Journey or I don't know what they call it anymore. Marathon, whatever it is, expect a lot of this work to not end up in your hands for some time. And then for video updates, we had an Inside Star Citizen titled Design Brief Cargo Career Part 1. And the first thing they do is introduce their new team working on Star Citizen, the NAPU team.
In looking at the way that our teams are structured, especially after the Montreal merger with Turbulence, we decided to combine USPU as well as Montreal PU into NAPU.
NAPU stands for North American Persistent Universe.
NAPU is the regroupment of 3 different cities.
In order to kind of create a super team that gives them a lot of coding firepower as well as design firepower.
NAPU is really a collection of people from Austin, from LA, from Montreal.
Now, I think this is much more of a big deal than I initially thought, which is why I felt like it made sense to leave it in here. Now, that seems like a lot of people. There's 3 studios all around North America. They're using people from all of them, but they only listed off a handful of people. It's hard not to be excited for an initiative like this, but it's also easy to be surprised at how few people are working on PU exclusive features. Then they went into more detail on freight elevators.
Freight elevators are going to be implemented as an access point inside of player hangars,
where the player can interface with cargo to get it ready to put it on their ship.
And you'll use a kiosk to interact with the freight platform in order to call things up from your inventory or to put things into your inventory. Players will be using their tractor beams in order to detach things from the platform and then haul it onto their ship, and vice versa. They'll be using the tractor beams in order to detach things from the cargo grids and put them onto the freight platform.
And all right, I love moving boxes more than most people in the game, but so far the explanation seems very tedious to deal with, and I really do I really have to call an elevator to grab some armor from my inventory? That's kind of weird. So I kind of hope that, we have places to store them in the inventory. And, well, how does this work on outposts and moons as well, right? Because we don't have elevators at those.
We don't just want to have the feature, exist in a void. Really what we want to try and do is work with the whole scope of the game to support cargo. So this is something for outposts, for UGF, where we want to look at how do we really take advantage of cargo in these spaces.
However, it does mean that the outposts will also support the same manual loading process that the hangars and those other locations use.
To me, this sounds like it's a massive overhaul for every location in the game. Also, how the hell are we supposed to protect our cargo while loading it at outposts? A lot has to change, right? Alongside the elevators is another big feature, which is instance hangars.
How do we have people spending an extended period of time in their hangar loading cargo now that we've added these freight platforms, but also allow the locations to have traffic coming in and out of the landing zones?
We don't want to have a big choke point of everybody trying to load their ships and unload and all trying to do that in the same space. So we have instance hangars as a way to put you in an area where you can feel comfortable, you can take the time that you want to load or unload your cargo and, really engage in that system the way that you choose.
Now, Chad talked about this a long time ago, like 2 years ago on an SCL, and I watched that video after reacting to this, which is up on my React channel. Check that out if you guys haven't. But yeah, as player counts continue to grow, I think we sort of needed to hear these things, but yeah, this isn't anything new. But they do go into a little bit more detail here.
But the thing with this one is that when you leave, things gonna basically go away.
Once you want to leave, you'll just make a request to ATC and the hangar will move into place. We'll open up the doors and you'll be able to leave. And then the same thing when landing, you make a request to ATC. The system will allocate the space for you, open the hangar, and you can land. For the players, it will seem seamless, but underneath the hood, the system itself is going to be maintaining a representation of where all the players are, what requirements are needed, without having a bottleneck for players who are actually just trying to play the game otherwise.
Now, most of that was probably pretty obvious to you, but did you catch what that Montreal dev said? These hangars will not persist. They won't remember if you left a few boxes behind. So you got to take everything or it's gone. So we need more tech to get that to happen.
And then we have persistent hangars. Persistent hangars are kind of an evolution of instant hangars. And really what it is our first step towards real player ownership in the game beyond ships.
The cool thing is that you'll be able to put your stuff in it, come back to it, and it's still going to be there.
It's just whatever the player wants to keep inside their hangar, that's their home. They can just leave them lie around. They can arrange them however they want, be it weapons or cargo or dead corpses or whatever.
Very, very long term. I have no clue of any dates or anything, but you'll be able to customize it and upgrade it so it becomes bigger. You can have bigger ships in them. And maybe at some point, even having them like at distant location, you could buy a second one. For now, it's going to really be on your own location.
And again, many long-term Star Citizen fans that pay a lot of attention have known this for a long time, but I think many of us will welcome the day that we have a hangar to call our home. And lastly, there are a number of other changes planned for the future past this current work.
With this new version of cargo coming out subsequently, we're going to be adding the ability to have what we call inventory container boxes.
We really want to make sure that not only is cargo physicalized, but that inventory has a proper location and place as well. The other thing we're looking at with cargo and cargo boxes is the ability to store large items in your cargo boxes. This could be anything from a ship weapon to even smaller vehicles like Grey Cats.
We have some additional changes that we're going to be making to the cargo grids that allow them to have any sized item attached into them. We're going to have it to where anything can attach to the cargo grid as long as it's a physical item in the game. Anything that you can grab with that tractor beam that can reasonably snap into place will be able to snap into place. And this is a requirement just to satisfy the inventory changes that we're making now that you won't have this kind of magical access.
Now, I wouldn't expect any of this to come in anytime soon, as most things don't, but how can you not be excited about attaching literally anything to a cargo grid? I know I want to see that. Also, this was sort of in 320 for a while, and now it's broken. So maybe it comes in soon, maybe it doesn't. But then we had a Star Citizen Live titled Ask the Devs with the vehicle gameplay team, and the first and probably most relevant information from the entire show was right at the start.
So we basically had a shift to squadron, and we've got that to a certain point. We've kind of reformed on the PU side to focus on the vehicle gameplay for the PU.
Now, I'm not 100% sure how to take this right now with the current state of the PU flight, but there have been a couple of fixes to ships, and we have the Master Modes test and Arena Commander, but I will believe it when they really start delivering more than just those little things to the PU, when they're really actively working on things. The next one is short, but it's sweet.
So we'd like to use the tractor beams to move the vehicles over, but we've basically just moved the ground vehicles to a new set of physics. And basically this has meant the old system we had to correct them back on the wheels doesn't work anymore because it's a completely new set of physics.
Really simple. The game is coming in with even more tractor beam functions, and one of them will be to right your ship or vehicle when you make a mistake. I think you should just remove some of the rocks personally, but yeah. We don't have a ton of info on master modes with other ships, but we did get this little tidbit.
There's the player who's firing the QED or using the QED, and there's a player who's going to be on the other end of it, essentially being pulled out or dampened. So for the person who's using it, the idea is it's going to be, or the current idea anyway, will be in SCM mode, along with a bunch of other things, so that you're in SCM, you've got the QED active, and then that's when you can use it. So if you're in nav mode and you get quantum dampened or quantum snared, your quantum drive is going to be off and you're going to be limited to SCM speeds for that time period. And then you can swap back to SCM mode yourself and then go try and defend yourself.
Now, I really like this, but he also hinted at something by saying for a time period instead of, until you're out of range, which could mean the same thing, could not. It's hard to say, but it sounds like we might be getting like some sort of a tackle of sorts, which is kind of cool. But that was this week's video updates. They were pretty good. I'm really excited for next week's ISC because a lot of what we got from this week's was like old stuff that many of us already knew, but next week sounds like a lot of new stuff. But let's jump into other updates and start out with that sneak peek. Surprise, surprise, no big deal. Just another picture of the Tumbril Storm for your sneak peek this week, just from a different angle. And next up is the Postmortem. I've been calling this out for weeks and weeks and weeks on why it's so important, and it is. But after actually reading it, I forgot why I put so much importance into another explanation from the excuse department at CIG. I will cover it today, but I'm not going to cover it from front to back, and I'll do my best with PES, but then quickly highlight some of the other features that kind of stuck out to me. Link to the post is in the description if you guys want to read it from front to back. The first statement is one many of us are aware of, but in case you weren't, 318 drew many people to Star Citizen for the first time, and many people back for the first time in a while. They far surpassed their expected number. So let's start out with went well. They're proud of their talented team, and their code was called high quality. They were happy with the PTU testing, and which seems somewhat fair. Honestly, in the PTU, we had our issues, but things seemed okay to launch to live. I think everybody kind of felt that way. After all this, the actual system of crashing and recovering worked. And then they discussed what didn't go well. And yeah, it was a lot more. They had problems with systems that they weren't expecting, like the tram systems and spawn queues. They had 2 times the activity they were expecting for live. And listen, not a single anticipated release goes well for any game company, especially multiplayer like MMOs and stuff, but this was a rough launch. This wasn't a rough launch, I should say. It was a complete disaster, and they had issues with the database that they use, which is apparently a third-party one. Incoming 3-year rework where we make our own database and, just instead of buying one and fixing the one that they have. I don't know. That one was a weird one. I had no idea they were using third-party things, but it also seems like an easy excuse to blame that. And now, what will we do better? And this one's really funny because they teased it on an ISC before the launch of PES in 318. And they should have been able to stress test the servers without us, which should have been easily able to find these issues. Remember this?
Right now, Club Test Launcher allows us to create machines on the fly when we need them, launch multiple clients on those machines, and simulate actual traffic. It actually launches a Star Citizen client, connects to the servers, and creates a very realistic testing scenario.
Next is interesting though, and they've moved on to static meshing, but the plan is to go in very slow motion with its implementation, and they should be able to do it in smaller parts, unlike the disruptive approach that PES took. While mentioning this intro, they also mentioned the elusive replication layer and matchmaking conversations. I expect to hear more about this maybe at CitizenCon. We'll see. Jumptown, they want to use Rastar to put it in. It was still really bug problematic and had so many other things that they didn't mention. Prison, speaking of bugs, is littered with them, but they will fix any bugs they can, so it's not being prioritized. What a surprise. The Scorpius Antares knew the ship wasn't done, and they sold it anyway. Hey, open your eyes and say we're going to stop doing things like this in our Postmortem instead of saying, yep, we'll be better next time. Salvage, they basically admit that they didn't give the teams enough time to get it done properly. Same with the tractor beam gameplay. Mining rebalance, this was my favorite thing on paper, but that it had a ton of bugs. They also didn't have time to fix all the issues there, but they'll keep on going with it. And that was really my overview. I'm not going to touch much on this. It's been spoken about at length from myself and many other creators. There's a bunch of other things like the Fury and the RSI links in there. If you guys want to check it out, again, link in the description. Pirate Week was a bit of a letdown so far. They had this Booze Clues contest that looked like some Easter egg hunt in prison, and it turns out it was a screenshot contest. Jumptown will be live again on Thursday, and they have honestly some awesome looking paints for sale, but none of them are on ships that I really use, but they look really cool. And then we had a lore post, which was about the Sentokai. Links in the description for that. This show was way too long, so yeah. That'll do it. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. But yeah, we had a busy week with stuff, and it looks like they're pushing 320 to live. I expect it to go live sometime next week, as long as nothing catches on fire. But thanks again for watching, guys. Leave a like down below because this was an entire week's effort to put together. Usually I'm able to kind of throw this together on Monday of late, but now it is a full week's effort. So make sure you like, leave a comment, and subscribe for more weeks in review. Thank you so much for watching. Oh yeah, you can join as well if you want to go above and beyond and support financially. There you go, guys. Have a great one.